The 7 creative channels, where the core of creativity is hidden. Every circuit, and of course the integration channels, has a creative core, a channel through which the whole circuit finds its creative expression. These are aspects that summarize all channels within a circuit and bring its information into the world. In this article, we will look at all the 7 channels and try to understand how they form the pillars of creativity for humanity. The first, 1057, the Art of Survival. Let's start with the first creative channel, which is not actually part of a circuit, but it's part of the integration channels. This is the channel of perfected form. My keynoting for this is as follows. This channel projects a quality of behavior that is guided by intuitive awareness and grounded in self-love. This behavior is the core of our species' ability to survive one person at a time. It is a channel that connects the self, the chi center, and therefore also identity, with survival, the spleen. We therefore have a quality of intuitive behavior, gate 57 plus gate 10. However, we find no motor here and also no possibility of expressing the quality through the throat. It is therefore a purely projected channel. It needs invitation and/or recognition. This is not about coming together, supporting, sharing, or empowering. It is about self-empowerment, or you can also say individuation or self-absorption. Therefore, you will often not even notice if you are recognized with this channel because you are not really focused on the other person. While you're busy being there for yourself, you don't care whether someone else sees it or not. You're simply in your own process. It is the other person who is attracted to this behavior because it looks different. Remember, integration and individuality is always about being completely different. You always get attention here, and in all other integration channels, of course, too, even if you don't want it because you don't feel like empowering other people with this energy. Integration is selfish. Incidentally, many people with this channel are architects or designers, people who literally work to perfect and beautify form, not just their own physical form. So why is it a creative channel? Well, because the most basic creative act of human beings is to be radically guided by their intuition without questioning it. You have to dare to do that. This represents a deep inner creative process that cannot be controlled or steered because it can only arise from spontaneous intuition. And of course, the mind or the emotions will often be louder here and thus drown out the hunches of gate 57. This creative channel speaks for all the channels of integration and represents them, their quality, in the outside world. The 1057 is the design of a survival artist. What integration presents to the world is the art of survival, something that can only be witnessed by another. The second channel, 8-1, the art of explanation or expression. Let's move on to the next creative channel, which represents the essence of the individual knowing circuit. It is the channel of the creative role model, the channel of inspiration, consisting of gate 1 and gate 8. My own keynoting for this is, this channel takes courage to stand out from the crowd and to inspire others to be equally bold. For this channel, living as an individual is an art and designed to get the public's attention. Creative channels have a huge impact on the world, and when you see the keyword inspiration, you might think that a person with this channel is very inspiring for themselves. In fact, it is more likely that these people are very inspiring for others. After all, it is a projected channel that finds recognition by expressing itself individually in the now, usually with a creative contribution. With this channel, you're often an example for others, expressing or acting in an original and differentiated way. But this requires an invitation or recognition. For example, a generator should be asked so that this potential can be activated. Remember that this is about empowering others. It's no longer about self-empowerment, which we found as a theme in the first creative channel. It is also important to realize that this channel, by its mutative and individual nature, really needs to work on its communication, because individuality is something that is not logical. So it needs the intellect to explain the original and novel, in this case, to present it in an empowering way. But if the 1/8 does not wait until it is invited to speak, then it will not be respected, enjoyed, or appreciated for what it says, no matter how much it could or would like to contribute. This does not mean that you can only be creative and individual if you are invited or recognized. Until you're recognized and or invited, you simply do your thing, based on strategy and authority, of course. In the end, an individual person is here to radically being themselves, without much interference. You will always have an effect, and others will remember it. For example, the way you drink your coffee can be different and empowering and inspiring. If the 1/8 cannot explain what it is doing, it will encounter a lot of resistance, especially if it simply initiates without really being recognized, asked, or invited. So what if the 1/8 comes together with the 14-2 in a chart? Then that means you need to be asked and somewhat invited to contribute. You need the recognition and question from the outside. You can then explain what kind of contribution you are going to make before you do it. Example, can you help me? And you answer, I know I can help you. To which comes the question, okay, and how? Which is then more of a question for the projected element in you, to which you might respond, well, let me explain. I can help you in such way. If you have finished explaining it, then with this 14-2-1-8 configuration, you naturally also have the power to manifest it directly. The important thing is that it was explained first, and that you then have a response to make it happen. Without a motor connection, it is advisable to coordinate the other to make it happen as explained. I hope it is now clear why this creative channel represents the art of explanation or expression. The third channel, 2551, the art of joy. We now come to the next circuit, which is called centering, and is rather small because it only contains 2 channels. But here, too, we find a creative channel, namely the channel of initiation, a design of needing to be first. My own keynoting for this is the ability to recognize a person's potential for individuation and, when invited, to provide the shock which initiates and empowers them towards it. There's a natural competitiveness in this channel that challenges humanity to move ahead. Once again, we have a projector channel, this time motorized, that can only express its true potential on the basis of recognition and or invitation. I find it interesting that most of the channels of creativity need recognition to really unfold. Moreover, this is not only the channel of competition and willpower-based initiation into a new direction, but also the channel of non-competitiveness. Human design is always binary. It is also easy to understand what an invitation can mean, namely that it can also be quite shocking and carries a mystical quality. The channel of 2551 is part of the mystical path. As we are still in the circuit group of individuality, it is about being yourself or being different. Therefore, life can often shock this channel into an invitation through strong realignments. The heart of every individual is non-interference, just being able to be without constant resistance. Of course, this can have a downside, because if you don't like someone interfering, then you interfere yourself too quickly to avoid that. However, this usually backfires because you have to wait until individuality can be accepted at all. Just because you carry a mutative potential doesn't mean you have control over it. You just have to let it happen and be patient. True initiation cannot be found on the outside, and certainly not through an enlightened master who tells you, be like me or do this and that for it. A good quote regards this is, those who seek will never find. The most creative thing you can do in this circuit is that you wait to be invited into initiation through being yourself. Like an aspiring shaman or priest. Anybody who is walking around living out their definition, type, and authority is being themselves. It's that simple. True initiation is to be committed to being yourself, and you can only be yourself when you are reacting to life, based on your type, your authority, and so on. Remember that individual creativity is always about the self, because all previous channels are connected to the chi center. Therefore, you can say that Creativity lies in your being. You are the art. I don't know exactly why Ra called this creative channel the art of joy, but I think it has to do with the fact that joy lies in being yourself. It is the art of joy to be yourself. Channel 4, 4816, the art of mastery. Now we leave the realm of individuality and come to the collective. Channel 4816 is in the logical understanding circuit and carries the name the wavelength, a design of talent. My own keynoting for this is making use of its depth and skills to find a potential solution to a problem or to encourage, correct, and refine something that needs perfecting. We do not find a generating or manifesting channel yet. The theme of recognition and or invitation is still important. This creative channel is no longer about self and or being empowered by being different. This is about correction, patterns, the good and the bad. The logical collective has the task of getting the best out of the existing by recognizing and correcting patterns. This is why we tend to find seriousness here. Why this is called the art of mastery is actually very logical, because this channel has the potential to go through something again and again and again to master something. A good metaphorical example would be a guitarist who practices every day and gets better, recognizes a pattern, corrects them, and so on. Gate 16 is the gate of skills and gate 48 is the gate of depth. So it only makes sense that these two gates together result in a creative talent that carries the theme of mastery. But because we don't have a motor here, we can immediately see that mastery is something that requires a lot of cooperation, especially in terms of resources, to come into the world. Guitar lessons cost money, the instrument costs money, and you have to be able to afford to invest time in practicing every day. The logic circuit is about developing techniques to concretize a pattern. In addition, the talent must be recognized. It must be recognized by someone with energy. In this way, however, you're also dependent on this energy, like a child who wants to learn an instrument and you pay for the lessons. If the other person does not want to invest resources, the talent will never have a chance to develop. Channel 5, 3635, the art of accomplishment. We remain in the collective, but now go to the other side, where it is not about logic and understanding, but purely about experiencing and reflecting on the past. The creative channel of the sensing circuit is called transitoriness, a design of a jack of all trades. Probably inspired by the phrase, a jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one. Because that's exactly the point. You're not a master of something specific that you repeat and practice forever, as in the logical creative channel, but you do new experiences. But without the new experience, mastery for the scientific side that we just looked at is not possible either, so they kind of go hand in hand. My keynoting for this channel is, this is an emotional manifesting channel that defies logic's caution and restricted patterns. It will try anything and everything, whether intrinsic value or not, to get things moving in the direction of a new experience. For the first time, we find a creative channel that has its own power to express itself, but never in the now, as it is an emotional channel. This is about transitoriness and change or progress. This channel is absolutely impersonal, although it is often taken personally because you're having an emotional experience with others. A good example would be sexuality. You have a nice night with someone. A fantasy may even has been fulfilled, but it's not personal. It wasn't about the person, but about the experience. And if you look really closely, it might not even be about the experience in the sense of the journey is the destination, but about the fact that the experience ends and you can look back on it. And then, of course, you also have to wait for an emotional clarity, because otherwise the blame game starts. I'm in a really bad mood now because the sex wasn't good because of you. Unfulfilled expectations is a typical theme in this circuit. We also know that we're not dealing with bitterness here, which is often pitied, but with anger and rage, as it is a strong manifestor channel. Why it is the art of accomplishment? Because the channel results from crisis of inexperience and strives for progress through emotional experiences. The light at the end of the tunnel, so to say. Something is completed, accomplished. This creative channel clearly shows us what the abstract circuit and the human experiential way is all about. Channel 6, 4426, The Art of Enterprise. We come back to a channel that needs invitation and or recognition. The channel of surrender lies in the ego circuit and is the design of a transmitter, consisting of a spleen gate called alertness and an ego gate called the egoist. We have here a willpower-driven instinct for the survival of the tribe. My own keynoting reads, here we find deep tribal memory rooted in instinctual awareness joined to ego strength. It is this combination that gives a transmitter the ability to selectively and persuasively use memory and guarantee that it will be an improvement in order to sell something to a targeted group of people. This is the only channel that connects the spleen to the ego. It is also a channel that will never work more than it really needs to or wants to, which gives us an indication of what a true projector might be about, as this is a projected channel. This is the creative art of enterprise or entrepreneurship. This channel is also called the capitalist. People with this channel are often involved in all levels of marketing. It's about presenting, graphically designing and marketing, and connecting with the tribe. This is the channel of the manipulative trickster. Well, it's a creative potential that can keep others busy while taking care of its own free time. The marketing boss who relaxes by the pool and makes the occasional phone call to keep the business going. The workers may find this completely unfair, but without this marketing potential, no product would be sold and the worker would no longer have a job. By the way, this doesn't mean that the 4426 doesn't work. It's just that when they do work, it's much less time-consuming and at a higher price. The creativity inherent in this channel is the ability to manipulate the tribe, get their attention, and sell them something they don't actually need. The tribe thrives on job creation, which has to be productive on one level or another. The tribe is the marketplace itself. The gift of this channel is to transmit when one is recognized. And of course, here, one is not recognized as someone who works a lot, but rather someone who can do a lot in a little, but wants a special position. For example, equal pay, but fewer hours in the office. If you allow the ego to rest, it is just as productive in its work as those without the ego who work so much more. Those 2644 people have a natural knack for compressing effort into a completely different amount of time. It's best to have an independent contract with the company, such as freelancing or being directly self-employed, if that works energetically. The key is to rest, to take breaks so that the true power can be unleashed at the right moment. Channel 7, 59.6, The Art of Bonding. We now come to the last creative channel. This is generative and emotional, which shows us directly that we are unlocking creative potential here only after multiple responses when clarity is found. Channel 59.6 is called mating and is a design focused on reproduction. It is located in the defense circuit of the tribe, so we have the theme of support as in the previous creative channel. The art we find here is not really an art because it cannot be created, mastered, or established in any way. It happens or it doesn't happen. Perhaps it is more the genetic creativity of reproduction because otherwise we would die out as a species. My keynoting for this channel is the urge to merge, and when guided by response over time, this can be healthy and deeply satisfying on many levels. The availability to intimacy allows to quickly and easily penetrate the auras of others, facilitating a coziness that paves the way for fertility in any creative endeavor. It's fascinating when someone has this channel because they can then penetrate anyone's aura. They simply break into the aura. It's about breaking down the barriers. It can actually be difficult to get the person. it can actually be difficult to get the other person out of your own aura again. Here we find the sexuality of the sacral and the pleasure-pain cycle of the emotional system. For real intimacy to develop, both aspects must be present in a relationship. The sacral must respond and the emotional system must wait out its waves for clarity. The right people will come to you even though they might think they can penetrate your aura, whereas it is actually you who attracts them and opens their aura. You take them in. This means that you cannot rush into every aura or challenge it because you want to. You have to wait to be asked before you can open someone up or create intimacy. And even if the other person comes, asks, and you feel good about it and closeness is possible, you have to be rejecting first because the emotional wave has no truth in the now. It is important to remember that there is no mental awareness as part of the defense circuit. If you look at the defense circuit or even the whole tribal circuit, there is no defined ashna involved. The tribe has no mind, so the mind of a 59-6 cannot understand why one is intimate with someone or not. The only thing the mind can do is make up reasons for what it thinks it's going on. If the 59-6 doesn't wait to be asked, they simply penetrate the other person and usually regret it. And so an awkward penetration is created instead of two people supporting each other in this intimacy. And so we have come to the end, and I hope it has inspired you and possibly brought you some clarity. Let me know in the comments if you have one or more of these creative channels in your charts. And if you liked this article that I wrote and just read out loud for you, please let me know by hitting the subscribe button, giving me a like, and maybe give me a follow on my Substack blog that I linked in the description box. Love yourself. Bye for now.